Hey everyone. I'm here with my lovely friend Alan, and we're going to talk about sleep, which I was just saying with Alan, it's a massive topic and it fits so well with our section on the body. And so, can I hand over to you, my love, and tell us what you've seen around this? Like maybe tell us the question and then what you've seen in relation to it, perhaps. With
Yeah. So what happened with me was that as I started to see more in this direction, my struggle with sleep eased quite a lot. And then this question came up about, what would it be for me if I didn't sleep and I wasn't at my best the next day? And then that question over time and experience was whittled down into this sensation. It wasn't even a thought. It didn't even feel like a thought anymore. I'm sure it was in some way or another, but it didn't feel like that anymore. It just felt like this sensation. And I felt it go through my body in the evening before a day at work or before kind of an early morning and some traveling or something. And I think, oh no, it's that feeling again. And then I lived with that for a while and then you see something fresh and whatever and whatever. And then I got caught up with that again a couple of weeks ago, which is why I messaged you, because I wasn't seeing anything fresh. Intellectually, I knew that that sensation that was going through my body was the same sensation as excitement or anticipation or, I'm going to speak to a lovely friend, or it could be anything, right? And that feeling in my gut was just that. But because it was attached to this thing and because it was at a certain time in the evening on the sofa or something, then it meant it was something different.
Hmm.
And I could catch that intellectually, but I wasn't, when I wrote to you, I wasn't seeing it deeper than that. And what I saw was that I have the answer to this because there is no answer to this. All there is me understanding that even if I go without sleep, even if it is for 2 or 3 days, which has happened in the past, that somehow my physiology finds a way through that. And I might not be, I might not be up to it, and I might be tired, and I might be a bit grumpy or whatever it is, but actually my physiology finds its way through that situation. Um, and knowing that, even with its limitations to my work or my life, gives me this other understanding that it doesn't matter so much. And just that doesn't matter so much allows me from going, in my experience of this, to going to bed and then not sleeping all night,
Hmm.
just kind of resting and relaxing, but not sleeping. And then kind of waking up, kind of getting up at kind of 4 or 5 o'clock, really frustrated because I haven't slept, to being able to go dip in and out of sleep, which of course then allows me to go through a normal day the next day. And it's just, I don't know what it is, Claire, and I'd love to see it a bit clearer. It's something about that not caring or
Hmm.
not seeing any importance in it so much that allows me to have that different experience of it.
Oh,
Mm.
Alan, I love every word. It's so great and it's so rich. What you're saying is so rich. And oh, yeah, just love it. Yeah. There's lots of things coming to mind as you're talking. So many different points in what you're saying. The the main one I think that's underneath everything that you're saying is the vicious circle of mind trying to control sleep that is so innocent, isn't it? And so understandable when everything is coming from this believed space of I have to sleep because I have to do a good day's work next day, I have to sleep. And the mind thinks it's the thing that makes sleep happen and controls when sleep happens and when waking happens. And so underneath it, there's this idea of control that is a total vicious circle when it goes unquestioned, because the more there is the attempt to control, and it's a futile one because it's not that controls anything. It's just a commentary really on what's going on. The more there's the attempt to control, and the more it's not happening in the way that the mind is thinking it should, the more desperation there is, the more stress there is, the more believed the images of us messing up the next day and a week stretching ahead with no proper rest, and all the data about how important sleep is, and so we just get totally lost in a confusion of attempt to control and implications. And what you're saying, I think, as I see what you're saying, it cuts through all of that, because in what you're saying and it's really like the way you're saying it makes it not like it's profoundly true. It's not like, well, it doesn't matter. It's like not like a pretend it doesn't matter. It's like a deep, calm, peaceful. Every word was so whole. Do you know what I mean? It was so, you could see, well, even if I haven't slept, then there is something in the body, in the intelligence that I am, that will continue to respond to whatever's required in that day. And it might not be what the mind judges as optimal, but it will be what's available. And there's such peace in that, such tremendous peace and freedom. And so I think what you've said is the two keys to sleep. One is that understanding that this isn't something for the mind. It's not a job for the mind, this one. It's a job for the body and responsiveness and intelligence, and that's it. It's not something the mind can figure out. And so in a way that goes for both. It goes for the sleep. That's not something for the mind to bother about. And the next day equally is not something for the mind to bother about, because the next day will just be an ongoing, moment by moment, responding to whatever's there. And that's all there ever is going on anyway. And then there's a true it doesn't matter, not a denial, not a spiritual bypass, but a really true, this is not in my control, this is not in the identity's control.
Yeah, it's such an interesting course, isn't it?
I
mean, I believe that you can have kind of, inspiration, God-given inspiration or something on a particular topic, something that you're doing that maybe you shouldn't be doing or whatever it is, and that it can kind of kill it stone dead and you never do that thing again. Or you can have this incremental insight, which is what I've had over sleep, which there's some evidence base in there as well. There's some evidence that I will get up the next day and I will do a reasonable job. There's some evidence that, because as you know, I've been working in prisons, so that I'll go in and I'll be able to kind of cope with all of the logistics of working in that environment and with people that, that are having a struggling time of it, all of that. So there's some evidence in there, and then it kind of, I get caught back up into the, into the mire of I love the way that you put that. It was so beautifully put. That control. I've never really looked at it quite like that before. I get caught up in the fact that there's something that ultimately there's something I need to do or not do that will give me what, that give me the desired effect, which is sleep. So this has been a kind of a 4 or 5 year journey for me, really, I guess, seeing something new in it. And it's really interesting to see, as I say, it's kind of incremental, and then I kind of fall back into something again, and then more and deeper, and then fall back, and then more and deeper, and then fall back. And it's so interesting to know that there's always going to be more to see.
Yeah.
In these kind of, for me, a bigger topic. This was always a big topic for me. So, yeah.
And I think you did say, Alan, it's a route in to like the biggest freedom of all, which is the witnessing space of everything that is said and done. And tiredness or hormones or illness or any emotion, anything, they're gifts in a way, all of them, because they allow for, instead of being lost in I'm the one talking to these prison inmates, or I'm the one talking to this client, I'm the one that is constructing these words and these sentences. Instead of that, so everything's identified as me, and if I'm tired and sluggish, then that's me that's tired and sluggish. The real freedom is the witnessing space of all the things that are said and done, and we can notice tiredness, and it's a gift to see, like, the system is tired, like the physical system is tired, or it's low energy, or it's hasn't eaten for a bit, so it's hungry, and or it's or it's just, it's grieving, or these things can be witnessed and really allowed in. It's really, because there isn't a self speaking. There literally isn't a Claire identity deciding these words now. There isn't an Alan identity in this conversation. It's a commentary of concepts and ideas, but it's not a controlling entity. And the more clearly that's seen, then there's just a witnessing consciousness that sees words being said and actions being done, and sees the effect of different physical influences. Really, like in the way that we'd notice a car that's, or if we're on a wagon, we notice the horses are getting tired after a couple of days of riding. It's not personal. It's just the current state and requirements of the system. That's it. And so instead of being lost in the tiredness and lost and feeling grumpy and confused, and everything's a bit harder, and so we're taking it out on everyone, instead of that, which I really, and like what I really see you doing is just the witnessing of that. Like, there's just tiredness going on right now, and that's it. And so the system is responding, and it's got a bit of tiredness to deal with at the same time, and that's all that's happening. There's nothing personal in any of this. It says nothing about any identity. It's really it's neutral in the way that in a way that a car would be neutral. You know, do you see what I mean with this?
Yeah, say more about how it's not connected to my identity.
Mm,
Uh, as a kind of an understanding of being without sleep and not being connected to my identity. I'm interested in that. How do you see that?
so this I would say is the ultimate freedom, and it's why something like it's why anything becomes a gift, because it starts to show it. We go about our lives lost, really. The mind is lost in its own story. So the whole experience of ourselves and of reality and of existence, of being alive, is coming out of this construction of beliefs and concepts that is unquestioned. You know, I'm like this, and I have to perform in this sort of way, and I have to have this much sleep in order to do that, and I have to have these sorts of clients, and I have to have this sort of response, and I have to have this sort of agility of mind. You know, like it's just a pile of beliefs, and out of that lens of identification, everything's experienced. So everything goes through that filter of this is true, this is real, this is what I am. And when something like tiredness comes in, and from your, you know, your beautiful words, we're really, anyone listening to this will see the freedom that you've described of that identification loosening. It's because it's not like you're saying, like it can be incremental, or it can be like for a lot of people, like sometimes it's just like this blowout. Often when we really reach rock bottom, there's just like a resetting of the whole mind. Um, Either way, it's glimpses, that it's either glimpses or it's a total revelation that that whole construct of personalized living isn't true. It's belief created.
Hmm.
And and as that loses its grip, because when it's so when there's so much tension and drama in it, so we can see, you know, and it's very natural for, like, if we're not sleeping, we get more worried, we get more caught up and more anxious, and so we go deeper and deeper and deeper into the personalized version. We get more, the mind is more and more lost in its own creations. There's just no escape, and the more it tries, the more creations there are. But what we can see from what you're saying is that the opposite has happened, and that actually the lack of sleep has become a stimulus to really notice the mind and to really notice that activity of identification. So instead of lost, it falls away, and what remains is just the witnessing space. And then in that space, freedom, because in that space, all that's going on is an unobstructed response to reality. The mind isn't trying to solve its own created problems that actually don't have anything
Mm.
to do with reality. So in
Mm.
that space, you're just completely present to whoever you're talking to, totally present. There's nothing in the way. There's no sort of false images obstructing that presence. You're just purely there. And so ironically, tiredness is a route through to more cleanness, in a way, of intelligence than we've experienced before.
I love that you've described it that way. I couldn't have said that. But that's been so true in my experience of it. Because I'm in a job where, because I now have a life where I know that when I get revved up, the thing to do is to be quiet.
Mm. Mm.
Because that's become second nature to me now. And that's what I do in my work as well. Then it constantly gives me reflections of what's going on, whether or not I'm doing my work. And so it has been really interesting to watch my tiredness and how it either affects or doesn't affect me, you know, or sometimes when I forget that I'm tired and I'm just sitting there and I'm, you know, with a client and I'm listening to their struggle, or we're having this beautiful kind of connection or whatever, and then of course it occurs to me, oh wow, listen, look at me, you know, not tired.
Yeah.
2 hours of 2 days of no sleep and not tired. Look at that. It's fascinating to see how resilient my physiology can be, and how it will make all of these, I'll say decisions, but I don't mean decisions, but how it can make all of these adjustments to get me to the next place and to the next place and to the next place.
Yeah.
Until, you know, we get to the end of the day and I sit in the car to come home, or I sit on the train to come home, and then it just gives out because it knows it can give out at that point. It's fascinating to watch myself go up and down during those times of tiredness. And then it's still fascinating to kind of get into bed at night and just think, I'm not going to sleep tonight, and then hear that, you know, that inner dialogue, that thing, you know, I'm not going to listen to that. I'll say, I'm not going to listen to that. And then of course what happens, you know, it's still going, it's still running in the background. So as I say, it's lovely to hear you describe it that way, because that's my experience of it, is that when I take it at all seriously, then nothing is going to improve until I forget to take it seriously. Basically, that's all that's going on for me. There's no solution to it. But it's beautiful to have these conversations, because I think it just kind of allows me to put some sort of understanding under my experience, you know, to kind of have a bit more 3D on what might be going on, you know. So I don't know.
No, I love what you're saying there. And Byron Katie once said something about having a headache, of experiencing absolutely no resistance to the headache and at the same time taking an aspirin. And I think that's really a very cool place, because for me that represents a total absence of denial, like zero spiritual bypass in a way, an acknowledgement of the body without any like how she phrases it, without any arguing with reality, isn't it? So there's like a freedom which I think is it's hard for us to get to, because in a way I think the mind is programmed, like action is programmed to come from resistance, like this shouldn't happen, therefore it's not okay that I'm not sleeping, therefore I'm going to try a billion different ways to sleep. Whereas total okayness, like you're describing with not sleeping, absolute wholeness with that, absolute no resistance, nothing in the way of total embracing of the state of not being asleep. And at the same time, a sort of playful openness to do whatever is making sense in that moment is quite a cool area for us to explore, I think.
I love that. I love that. I've never heard that Byron Katie quote before. Yeah, yeah. That not what do I do, but this whole kind of giving in to whatever the sensations are,
Yeah,
and then just automatically or necessarily doing whatever makes sense.
yeah,
You know, going to sleep and thinking of for me the the black velvet hammock in a black room. You know, so
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I never think of that option when I'm fired up about
yes,
sleeping.
yeah, yeah, brilliant.
Never think of that option, right?
It's so cool.
Because
You
it's
can't,
not
yeah,
because it's not a solution to not sleeping.
yeah. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's an attempted solution to find peace of mind.
Hmm.
It's got nothing to do with sleep, has it? It's an attempted solution to stop suffering.
Yeah.
So it's out of reality. And so there can't be a solution because intelligence that we are is reality. It's responding into reality. I love that. I love that, Alan. Yeah. So it brings everything into, like, everything, the physiology, the intelligence, the resources, the ideas, everything into action on this reality rather than the created versions of mind. And then all sorts of ideas make sense then that we would never have access to otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? Just to, you know, I'm a walker. So when I'm having one of those days, whatever one of those days is on that particular day, then I go for a walk. It's one of those things. And then when I'm taking one of those days seriously, walking doesn't help.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you go, well, why isn't this helping? It's
yeah,
walking. This is what I do. It's walking. Why isn't it helping? Why isn't the river view helping? Why isn't, you know?
yeah,
Because, yeah, because it's only it's being ready for the fresh the whole time, isn't it?
yeah,
Being
yeah.
ready for anything now, anything now.
That's beautiful. And
Mm.
and seeing that the suffering, like seeing that our actions to try and get rid of the suffering are at worst only ever increasing the suffering because it's sending us deeper into the mind created story that is causing the suffering, or at best it just prevents that sort of that presence, that, that simplicity and ease of seeing that the suffering is pointing to the constructs of mind rather than drawing us out.
So by looking for a solution, is what you're saying, by looking for a solution, that's what creates the problem.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
could say, I think the misunderstanding of suffering creates the problem, really.
Mm.
And then the looking for the solution to the suffering within what the mind has created exacerbates it
Mm.
and is never ending. And we could spend our whole lives trying to end suffering through um, from within the belief structure of what we are and what other people are and what's real. And it can't be done because it's that belief structure that is causing the suffering in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, beautifully put. Mm, mm.
Oh,
So lovely to have this conversation. A couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago, I caught myself. I was with a client, and I wanted to tell a story about sleep to them so that I could kind of, because it made sense to me to do it, and I didn't do it because I didn't want to enliven that experience in me.
okay. Yeah.
That's when I knew that there was still something going on.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I went to say something and then stopped myself, and I never do that. I always, just blurt stuff out.
Yeah.
Um,
Get
and
that.
I thought, oh, that's interesting, right? Okay, so what am I scared about with that then? I think, in some way superstitious about talking about sleep. So this is
Yeah.
a beautiful conversation for me, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or equally that because I think what does happen is that our story about sleep to our own self, or our story about anything, becomes less true. And so whereas like so our old stories that we would say can't come out anymore because they're sort of they're not quite integrated, they're not quite fully seen, and so they're not there to be said anymore. So
mm,
because it sounds like there's a new understanding of sleep and self that you're sharing with us, that I think will come so easily for you to talk about with clients.
that's so interesting because now you've pointed at it, I can't see any intellectual shift at all between the way that I felt before and the way I feel now. But I can feel the change. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I think you came on the call fully knowing, and yeah, we've just sort of I don't know what we've done, solidified it maybe. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. This is the first time that I've had the opportunity to talk about it. Really, is um, I felt safe talking about it with you, and it's yeah, that's interesting because there's probably some ego involved in I do what I do, and there's this idea that if you kind of understand this side of life a little bit better than other people, then you should have your shit down.
that's so lovely to say. That's freedom to be able to say that too, isn't it? I love that.
So yeah, it just occurred to me then I hadn't quite seen it like that, but yeah, there's probably stuff like that going on for me. So yeah,
Yeah,
this is a lovely conversation for me because whatever comes out of it, it allows me to feel my way back, feel my way into this new way of life,
yeah.
with a maybe a little bit more understanding. I don't quite know. I've never quite understood how that works. I've only ever felt better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I tell people how I felt better, right? Because that's just how I share this. But yeah, it's such an interesting conversation. And I love that you're digging in deeper to this idea of ego and control and identity, because it's a part of the conversation that I don't have very often. And so I'm really enthusiastic kind of to be involved in this particular um, group that you have now, because I want to hear more about that. I want to experience more in that.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm so glad. Yeah,
yeah.
it's true freedom. It's the yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and I love every word you said today, Alan. Every word. Yeah, beautiful. Oh, I love you. I'm so glad to hang out with you again.
I love you too. It's so lovely to see your face. It's so funny. You see people on social, don't you? And oh, good, she's doing that. That's really cool. And then you forget to kind of touch base with people. So it's so lovely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm.
well, thank you so much. I mean, it's a topic that's relevant for all of us, and yeah, everyone will be so grateful for it. So thank you, lovely. Thank you.
Talk,
Yeah. See you Monday, hopefully.
yeah, see you Monday.
Yeah.
Take
Bye. Love.
care. Bye.
Bye.